Telecoms probably hasn't been that much disrupted lately, right? So I think WhatsApp and these kind of free calling apps many years ago have disrupted more than many other things recently, right?
So will it continue to be business? I mean, will the telco companies, because revenues are shrinking. So
Sure.
if you think that they will continue to do any business in 15 years from now?
5G certainly disappointed, I think, many people, right? But with many things that are very much promoted by vendors, right? All the great stuff you can do with it. They are theoretical use cases, right?
If we think about, this is today in 2024, and we were having a scenario in 2030 that even maybe, fixed phones are going to disappear. But if we think all the way ahead on 2040, what is the infrastructure services that you believe that are going to be needed then?
So, well, we're going to be much more connected. And for networks, I think it's just bigger data centers, bigger pipes, more data to be stored, more data to be transported. And probably the traditional telco will go back to what it always was, a utility for connectivity, right?
Welcome. You are tuned into the Tech Foresight podcast, where we decode the future of telecom technology and business. I am Diana Daniels, your host today, and I am very passionate advocate for telecommunications, financial empowerment, labor, and digital inclusion. In each episode, we are going to connect with the industry trailblazers and visionaries cracking into the groundbreaking ideas that are setting the pitch for tomorrow's world. Today, we are grateful to receive the visit of all the way from Singapore, from a veteran in the telecommunications industry, Andreas Hipp, who is the CEO and co-founder of Cataleya, a real-time communication software and communications platform, which is a platform as a service, PaaS. They are a company that are catering for all switching and analytics needs for the traditional unified communications as a service and cloud communication service providers. Cataleya is the only vendor which lets you build your own tailor-made switchboard controller. And Andrea is also passionate about supporting the industry evolution and is fostering currently young entrepreneurship, innovation, and social impact. Thank you, Andreas, for being with us today. How are you?
Thank you very much, Diana. That's great. Never heard such a perfect introduction. Seriously. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very good.
It's going to be a great podcast. I know this.
Yeah. You were wondering about my tan, but I moved apartment in Singapore the last 2 weeks. And we have a big outdoor area, and the weather is beautiful and super hot. And well, it was not a holiday, I can tell you that.
Well, some track record for creating disruptive businesses and business models, actually, just like what happened that you did Epsilon Global Communications, which you founded and grew into a leading service provider in the cloud and data space. Then, almost 10 years ago, you founded Cataleya. In 2017, you made a strategic buyout, and since then, Cataleya is now exclusively owned by its employees, which is a reflection of the entrepreneurship spirit that you have. How do you see the state of disruption entrepreneurship in the telecom market today?
Yeah, so I think telecoms probably hasn't been that much disrupted lately, right? So I think WhatsApp and these kind of free calling apps many years ago have disrupted more than many other things recently, right? So and I think the industry is probably still suffering from that, and I guess communication landscape has really changed, right? And if you look at younger generations, I mean, they probably struggle to dial a number on a phone, right? It's all app connected, and everything is stored, and you wouldn't recall the phone number of a friend anymore by heart, right? Like it was many moons ago. So, but in telecoms, I think, cloud and the presence of cloud systems and cloud communication has a major impact on the way we communicate. And I don't want to go back into the past when we were kids, right? I think everything was difficult and you had to show up at the right time to have an appointment. a long distance call was like buying an aeroplane or a rocket. So I think
Yeah, I
a lot has
remember.
been achieved, right? And I think telecoms, as much as people think we are boring people now because we have gray hair, not you, but I certainly do, and less as well. We haven't done anything, but I think if you look back since probably deregulation, late 90s, I think the cable system that have been built, the infrastructure that has been built to enable all that stuff that we and young generations are so happy to enjoy, right? So, and that continues, maybe not the same momentum and maybe not to the same extent like the mobile phone has changed things, right? The internet has changed things, right? Now you can buy stuff online. Yes, that's great, but we can do that for many years, right? So I don't think we're going to see these big changes, right? I think it's just the way we consume and the simplicity of it and the availability that made a difference. And I think like we use Zoom today, but there's many UC platforms out there. And I think COVID really drove that kind of communication into the lives of private people who were sitting on the balconies or in their home gardens and couldn't meet anybody and talk to anybody for months and maybe even longer, right? So I think, yeah. So, yeah, I think lots have happened and many things have changed to the better, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? I was in this space. We actually had another telecom executive the other day who was telling us about the inability of the large telecommunications network to be disrupted anymore. You just said it correctly, right? Other companies, smaller companies, startup business has come to the telecom industry to disrupt us. So I wonder, you have a very unique approach with the SBC where you are basically giving, this demand for tailor-made services that reflects a broader shift in the telecom needs of the customer expectations. How did you guys come up with that, and how is it working?
I think it's still the same, right? When we started Epsilon, just to go back on that, right? We found the way that transport or transmission services are provided is very cumbersome, long-term contracts, long delivery times, and it didn't really reflect the nature of agility and quick activation and so forth, right? And, we didn't reinvent a new multiplex or a new technology, right? We just changed the term and the activation and the service and the support. So disruption can be in different ways, right? It's not just technology and we come out with a new super beast that changes everything in life. It's very much about processes, right? And a lot of the famous big app providers we have seen that just changed the way we deal with things. They haven't changed. They haven't invented some massive technology to do things besides analyzing everything we buy and when we buy it and where we buy it. But Telco has always had the problem, right? Initially, it was an infrastructure business, which was basically tasked to build long-term reliable infrastructure, which lasts 30, 40, 50 years in the ground, right? And that culture was about all that, right? It takes a long time to do. It's very expensive, but it will last forever. But making changes to it, we do every 15, 20 years when there's a new generation of equipment also. Service was basic, was phone calls and messaging. There was no internet really. And obviously with these new services coming in, the demand on operators has changed as well, right? Not just building bigger pipes, but you had to be better connected networks. Everything became very globalized in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And communication really kind of, extended far beyond the borders, which was great. But I think the mindset and the way of telcos looking at it, and also probably protecting the territory and their revenues, right? So you deregulate the market and a lot of new people come in, and the cake is not always growing as quickly as the slice somebody might take of you, because the service differentiation was, I give it to you cheaper, right?
Right.
Largely. It was not necessarily better, right? Now, of course, things have moved on. Price is not always a winning game. And the people who come into communication, they look at it from a user perspective, which telcos never did, right? How long have they called us a subscriber? we are essentially a subscriber. We are not a customer, right? So we have the pleasure to consume the service they built for us, right? So this is an attitude thing, right? If you have this in your head, it's very difficult to kind of think, oh, well, we need to provide a better service. Yeah? Now it's everything about unified communications and customer experience solutions, right? Because, you know, they are nomads, right? If you don't like it, then they go somewhere else because you can buy stuff.
They change, yeah.
It mostly comes from China at the end of the day, but you know, you have freedom of choice, right? It's not like you are stuck with one particular company, and then innovation is slow because it's complex systems very often still, and we have seen that the last few years we finally made our inroads into larger telcos. They're still organized as silos, right? So every department has their own operating cost, the operations support. When it comes to purchases, they tender separately, so they buy the same platform maybe 3 times for different use cases. So by default, it becomes costly, right? Then they always like the one vendor approach. It's so easy to deal with one big party who can do everything for us, but it also limits your capabilities because no single vendor has everything or the best of everything, right? So, and I think that's where virtualization, software being detached from hardware made it a great change, right? It's probably for a consumer or an end user not visible or not necessarily known, but that flexibility of building networks really to support the right functions and take the best of breed for each application, that is now possible, and it's going to get better, right? It's all API based, easy to interconnect. It's not months and months of testing and integration. So yeah, I think we are heading in the right way. Sometimes not fast enough, and depending on the region and countries, the different stages of evolution, obviously. But I think I was not always a big fan of disruption because it has a negative connotation. First of all. And secondly, you know, it's not always to disrupt. It's just, I think, to improve stuff and make it better and easier and more cost effective. That should be the objective rather than
I like that approach because it's at the end is the evolution, right? Rather than just the disruption or interruption of
imagine somebody imagine somebody super rich comes along and say, okay, I'm going to offer taxi hail riding for free. Because I have 100 billion on my bank account, I'm dying in 2 years of cancer. I don't know what to do with the money, right? Uber would be bankrupt within 6 months. Grab would be bankrupt, right? So, you know, that's disruption, but it's pointless because it has no sustainability model built in. And I think we have to look at that as well, right? We want all these great startups and new businesses to actually make it, right? You can't just go to the shareholders, investors to ask for more cash. Right?
Which in many cases is happening, right? But it's interesting because you know, we went from an era of smart boxes where all switches were super smart, doing very smart things, and then to convert those smart boxes in dumb boxes and bring the intelligence up into the cloud, which is kind of like what you guys have been doing. And in the light of this accelerated digital transformation that has, you know, this year and the past year, we have seen this mega speed up by the search of AI. How do you see the role of telecom evolving into the next 5 years, especially in this supporting remote work, education, and healthcare?
Yeah, well, I think COVID...
5 years from now.
I think COVID really accelerated that transition from traditional telephony and communication services, right? Because it was just impossible to use your desk phone in an office you couldn't attend for 9 months. So that was a very good thing to say something positive about COVID, right? And so I think that gave a good start. And a lot of companies looking at their infrastructure and environment and the way they communicate with customers differently. And you see a lot of new vendors, a lot of new service providers coming up and trying to find their niche and try to address particular verticals where they have certain strengths and knowledge and understanding and relationships. So I think that's going very fast, and that's going to happen and going to be the direction. And certain markets, they probably have only 10% of cloud-based communication platforms. The rest is still on-prem, PBXs, traditional systems and solutions. And I think that's transitioning very, very quickly. That's partly due because some countries don't have the infrastructure to support cloud communication effectively because it's, very rural areas, or it's not well connected with fiber because of the stage of the country and the funding that goes into it. But it's certainly changing very quickly. And I think in 5 years from now, we will be far more used to these type of communication, and many things will just converge on a mobile handset. I think the desk phone will entirely disappear. I'm not sure if many people who produce them want to hear that, but it's unlikely.
Which phone will entirely disappear again?
The desk phones, the physical desk phone will disappear.
The old line phones, those ones gone.
Yeah,
who's using them anymore?
I think they will be gone, right? You're wearing a headset like this and have a computer, or you're connected to your phone, and there will always be video. I think what is important to achieve, and I think a company recently failed, is to bring in omni-channel communication and to truly also, for example, you are a Microsoft Teams user, right? I am a Zoom user. Why cannot we have a call? You using your Teams application, I use my Zoom application, right? I think that's the next stage where people can have their preferred way of communicating within the enterprise and outside of the company. But it does not matter what system you use, right? So I think that connector is needed between different application types, right? So it's a simple comparison, right? It didn't matter 25 years ago if you had a Siemens desk phone and I had a Nokia.
Totally.
But now it matters, right? If you have Zoom and I have only Teams, right, we have an issue. So we have to agree on one or the other.
This is how actually WhatsApp started. If you remember, it was because if you had a BlackBerry, you can only communicate with your BlackBerry with your IM messaging.
Exactly.
And suddenly WhatsApp started connecting the BlackBerries with the iPhones with the other phones. So absolutely. I love this. Totally relevant. And thinking about like what is happening as well in the transmission and telecommunications, like with 5G deployment, in theory, hopefully this year gaining momentum, because last year it was supposed to be the year of 5G, and then AI came and something else happened, right? What opportunities and challenges do you predict for the telecom operators and their partners in leveraging the 5G technology for its full potential? And let's going to think maybe not this year, but again, let's going to think 2030 as our goal.
Yes, so 5G certainly disappointed, I think, many people, right? But with many things that are very much promoted by vendors, right? All the great stuff you can do with it. They are theoretical use cases, right? If there is no customer and if there is no market that is willing to pay for it, and, let's take the self-driving car, right? So that was there 5 years ago, right? It's still not driving by itself because the networks are not good enough, and the reliability and all the kind of potential litigation that might follow from something happening is too risky, and the investments are really high, right? And need deep coverage to actually make it work, right? You cannot just stop outside of the city, right? Then you have to drive yourself, right? So and many things, right? Network slicing, great idea. Oh, you can prioritize different services, right? So medical, you can operate from far away. I think they can do that these days, right? But is the volume there, right? Is the mess of use cases around that really can pay for these investments, right? So it has great potential. It's a great technology, I think so. But I think together with IoT and other things, we have to create really these use cases and make them commercially viable to do them, right? And I think for making a normal phone call and browsing the internet or playing a game online, that's 5G, but I don't think that the operators had that in mind as a customer, right? Then you pay your 30 euros a month, right? I think it's more built for the ones who pay a few thousand. And you can see many countries as well, right? They had big plans. We have good knowledge about, for example, Bangladesh, right, to roll out 5G, but then they pushed it out by 2 years because they said 4G is not even utilized properly, right?
Right.
So because people can't afford most of the things that you would use 4G and high bandwidth for, right? And 5G is even worse, right? So it's great if you do online gaming, of course, right? But is this a business case, right? That you have somebody who just downloads stuff day and night, right, and consumes. Remember, I just got my renewal from my local provider. I don't want to mention a name here, right? There's not that many in Singapore anyway. And my plan 4 years ago was 2 gig or 4 gig, right? Data included.
Mm-hmm.
Now it starts with 30 gig. That's the minimum. That's the cheapest you can take, right? And then the average is 100 gig or 150 gig, right? Usage. I mean, you can see how this, but do I pay much more than 5 years ago? I can tell you, no. I don't. I probably pay less, actually.
Right.
So, but all this investment goes into fiber. You need more fiber. You need more wavelengths. You need more transport network. You need bigger data centers to get the same, because the population is not growing, really, right? Not here. and most other countries not here. So, so if you have no enterprise business and no industry use cases that really support it and bring that revenue stream and that business to the network for who it's actually really built, right? It's not built for me and you, personal usage. It will be tough to justify that, right? And now they talk about 6G, and I think when you're in Barcelona, you will hear a lot next week. I'm not sure. I think we should fill these 5G networks first before we.
It's interesting because it's completely true, right? I mean, we're talking about like either 5G, 6G, or whatever it comes. And with applications like we just spoke about, AI, demanding more bandwidth, or IoT. If we think about this is today in 2024, and we were having a scenario in 2030 that even maybe, fixed phones are going to disappear. But if we think all the way ahead on 2040, what is the infrastructure services that you believe that are going to be needed then? We're speaking about 15 years already ahead. So what's going to be like the infrastructure offering?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the developed markets and in especially city areas, it will be fiber-based networks, more and more connected. There will be additional Wi-Fi point-to-point. You can't dig up the road all the time. Another gap I think we have, and maybe LEO and MEO satellites will change that. There has always been a satellite world and the fixed world, right? But they never converged. But I think that also has to happen, right? And their capacity and bandwidth should have become cheaper as well. Clearly, will do many things, right? But it's really an analytics and efficiency proposition. And besides carrying many advantages and so on, but it will also carry quite a few risks. And as usual, the governments are far behind regulating anything, right? Until they have to do a big U-turn at some point in the future. So will AI make a lot of business? No, I think it will provide essential services and information to companies, and by analyzing conference calls, analyzing conversations with customers, preparing notes and so on. But it will at the same time also reduce a lot of jobs, right? And we should not be naive about that. And I think many people talked about it already. So that's another thing, right? Because people without jobs have no money and they can't buy anything, right? So, then you have no customers to sell to. So let's see. I think there's a lot of challenges coming our way, but I'm sure there will be a pass. But so we're going to be much more connected, and for networks, I think it's just bigger data centers, bigger pipes, more data to be stored, more data to be transported, and probably the traditional telco will go back to what it always was, a utility for connectivity, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking, right? Like there's these clips on the internet, like if you will drain the ocean, how it will look with all the cables that we have, you know, and then we're thinking like more cable, more data centers. It's like, oh gosh, will the Earth will have, you know, a space on this, and then sustainability is becoming increasingly crucial across all sectors in the context of telecommunications even more, you know. What strategies do you believe that most of effective companies in achieving this environmental sustainability while continuing to expand and improve the services they can take?
Yeah. I mean, like as in most industries, sustainability and the environment is not priced into the service cost. Right? We ignored it. We just burn the planet, essentially, and nobody pays for it, right? And people don't consider, they think, oh, if you take a flight, that's all bad, right? But, you know, if you sit on your phone and the amount of chargers you have today, right? That was never the case, right? You never used so much power in your life, right? Because you're always online somewhere, which didn't happen, right? So I think everybody who is a heavy user of these things should think about it, right? It's not clean. It looks clean, right? Because you don't touch anything dirty, but it is not, right? It comes somehow from fossil fuel or some other source of energy which might not be clean at all. And then, you know, data center burns a lot of energy, as we all know. And if you download stuff and upload unnecessary videos about your lunch, you know, I'm not interested what you had for lunch, really, and how it looked. And, you know, all the things. And I was at the Coldplay concert recently in Singapore. I mean, everybody is filming the same concert, right? And uploading it to the cloud from their mobile phone. So why would you want to watch that 55,000 times? Because that's how many people were in that stadium. And this is the duplication and the unnecessary creation of, it's not even content, right? They make a movie about the concert anyway one day with a much better audio quality than you could record it. So,
but Andreas, I'm not sure there is a way back to that.
No, there's no way
or
back.
From there. No. I'm not sure if there's a way back from all this hyper-connectivity and unconscious and conscious addiction to content or whatever it is.
Yeah, so you have to price that in, right? Because if it costs money...
Okay, you want it, you pay for it.
Exactly.
Like it was just like it was before, right? I remember the days that instead of, I don't know who came with the idea of the unlimited plan, but... right? It was, you pay what you use.
Yeah. The biggest mistake telecoms made, I'd say, for many years is that we should have always charged for an email. See, when you send a letter with the post, right, you put a stamp on it. If you send 100 letters, you have to buy 100 stamps, right? But we basically gave the transport for free or for a fixed amount per month, right? And you can send as much as you like. Who wouldn't do that, right? It's like you open a buffet and you always charge 20 euros and people would just eat until they die. Just because it's available.
Listen, if we will go back on time, probably this will be something to evaluate, right? Like if you could have that time machine, say, hey, you know, don't price flat fees or all you can eat type of pricing, but that train is gone. You know, so we are here where we are already, as you said, with telecom companies suffering even into pass from 3G into 4G or 5G because they demand more capacity in the network, which they cannot charge because people are not paying for it. So I guess that this is where we are today. How are we going to be, you know, 15 years from now? As you say, it's going to be a utility. Is it going to be for free? Who's going to pay for it?
No, but you know, if you basically the utility, you have a fixed cost, right? You have a expansion cost and so on, right? And all the application companies will be basically your customers, right? It's like you buy power from the power company or the power grid, right? And that's what it is. If there's investment needed to reach additional capacities and so on, you have to pay more of that, right? Or more for that. The problem is that telcos partly in the same space as the challengers, right? And the challengers are their customers at the same time, right? So you always had in wholesale, You remember, right? You had this conflict between, should we actually support our competitor, right? By giving them cheap pipes and cheap data center, right? So they can compete with us directly. So I guess, there might be some separation of or segregation of duties, right? So like in well-layered markets, you have people who do that, you have people who do that, you have people who do that. And then there will be some telcos, I'm sure, right, who can evolve and who can progress and who can become challengers and maybe have a strong brand name and everything else to compete with the other names, right? But some others will just simply not be able to, right? And now you can buy insurance from your telco and you can buy holidays from your telco. Yes, maybe, you have two things, right? You have your brand, which is usually trusted because the company exists for many, many years. So you would almost buy anything from them, which is a service, right? And the other one is infrastructure and access, which is the network and the assets they have. And, everybody who wants to use communication in that particular region, area, city, country needs an infrastructure company. And there's not that many who have a depth
so
and have access.
Will it continue to be business? I mean, will the telco companies, because revenues are shrinking. So
sure.
If you think that they will continue to do any business in 15 years from now, or who doesn't add new type of stream revenues, it won't succeed. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, so I think there are two avenues, right? So either they can, the consumer, I think, is lost, right? The consumer just uses your mobile phone subscription and doesn't do much, right?
Yeah, they're becoming agnostic on what network. They just want fast network. Exactly. They're not loyal to your brand. It's not like an iPhone versus Samsung type of thing, It's just give me a good network, not choppy. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So, and then is enterprise, right? So enterprise customers, and UC already starts there, and is Microsoft. I think there's still a space for the telco, right? But they have to have a very strong ICT capabilities, right? The enterprise customers want you to deliver solutions, right? Software applications. They want the CRM from you. They want the customer experience management software solution from you. They want the connectivity. They want the telephone numbers. They want the phone service. So, but a lot of the telcos never had that ICT competence, right? They were always system integrators in the markets, or they were really enterprise specialists like HPE and some other of the big, ICT companies that are out there. So for the telcos to get into that space would be the logical direction, right? But then you also need to have the people and the competence and the thing to do that. And then you can bundle things, right? So you become a bit of an SI really, and a solution provider, enterprise solution provider. And I think that's probably the most likely future interaction for them to go, to have their own apps. And I think 10 years ago, some companies tried it, but you cannot compete with Microsoft and WhatsApp and Facebook and these things, right? So this is too established, and it's there, and I don't think there's much room for anybody else. And then we will see what eSIM does, right? And the next question is, are these application guys and Microsoft in particular, are they going into become a telco, right? Why would you buy companies like Affirmed Networks and Marvin here, right? Why would you buy SBC and IMS vendors and build a mobile core, right? And then suddenly you have eSIM. What's stopping you, right?
They might not even need to buy any telcos. You have people like Google that are already just buying the infrastructure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do they need a telco?
Yeah, no. You host your IMS and your EPC, all the mobile core elements in your Microsoft Azure data center. And then you just need radio access, right? But in the US, you have Open RAN, right? In Europe as well. So it's unlicensed spectrum. You don't need to be a mobile operator. You just need, because you can't buy a mobile service from Microsoft online like you buy your 365 subscription, right? But there will be system integrators and Microsoft partners who can deliver that, right? And this eSIM, you're not fixed to your SIM card or to anything on your phone, right? You can travel and commune and have different identities when you move from one country to the other. So I think there's going to be, nobody made big announcements, but there are some moves. And then Rakuten tried it with the virtual mobile network as a service, right? So there's a few players out there who driving in that direction. So I think there's even more pressure coming from the apps guys towards the mobile core and mobile network operators, or network operators in general. So we'll see. Well,
we'll see.
Diana, I don't know. I wake up every morning and ask myself.
I got you already in the future, Andreas. We're thinking already 2040. I'm going to ask you to think about a little bit further down the road. Let's going to think like you're already like in 2050. I'm going to ask you these questions. Ideally, you come back to me with maybe a word or one phrase that can illustrate what you believe that is going to happen by 2050. You're ready for the challenge?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. All right. Okay, will quantum computing will replace traditional data centers?
I think so, yes.
All right. What about teleportation for data transfer? Science fiction or real future reality?
I think we can get there at one stage, right? With quantum technology, the way it goes, right? And we have a famous Austrian who just won the Nobel Prize last year, I think, right? I think they are on a path, right? And with quantum security, I've been involved a little bit in QKD, right? So you're having quantum keys you send via satellites because you can't tap them on fiber. I think this is also something we need very, very urgently before the quantum computers become mainstream. But yeah, let's see. I would not say not possible.
Very good. So what about then global internet coverage through satellite? Achieved by 2050?
Yeah. Can be achieved.
Done.
It's not a technical challenge. I think it's just a commercial one.
It's a commercial one. Yeah, probably the cost of going up there by 2050 is less expensive. What about virtual reality, immersive virtual reality as a standard communication? Yes or no?
I fear yes. I fear yes. Yeah.
So listen, that could mean probably less traveling. So rather than having a coffee between you and I there sitting in Singapore Bay, we'll just have a coffee, you over there and me in Barcelona.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But we can do that now already using Zoom, right?
That's true. Okay, artificial intelligence surpassing human network management. Do you think that it's inevitable?
That it replaces human?
Yeah, AI, that is going to surpass the human network. The people will not do any network management at all. Do you think that eventually will happen, or we'll still have people in the know?
I think you always need an authority, right, who makes a judgment at some point. But I think especially. But
do you think that AI is going to be capable in the next 25 years to be that judge?
Yes. I think AI will be capable of doing proper network analytics and recommendations on changes, and self-healing networks will be something I think we will be used to by then. I think we're not far away, right? The algorithms exist, the mechanisms exist, network analytics happens, network management happens. So it's just really to apply that to that complex world of it, right? And then also define, which platforms, which applications in the network have to deliver what data to be able to make that call and make that decision. But this is certainly, from all the others you asked me, probably the most likely one.
All right, so you already predicted the death of the fixed line phone. What about the physical smartphones? Do you think that by 2050 they will be embedded? What do you think, 2050?
I don't think it will be mainstream, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people run around with some implant, yes.
Implant. Hello?
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
in the shoe, but in the phone.
It's already in your head, exactly. So you can't switch it off.
Right.
There's some disadvantages.
When do you see a blockchain as the primary tool for telecom security? What year happening?
I haven't followed that much, right? Because other hypes kind of overtook that hype. So I don't know.
Hype?
I mean, other hypes, well, AI and quantum computing, and I think there was something else. But well, it's a technology, right? It's not a service. It's not a system.
Yeah.
And we don't need it in our business, right? And I know that some operators use it, and I know that there's some applications largely in finance and banking and contract management. If it's blockchain, would it make a difference to you and me as a person? Not sure. Nobody could explain it to me yet what the difference would be. If it's there or not, I actually don't.
We'll have a chat about blockchain next time I see each other. Okay. We see each other over coffee then. So maybe I'll convince you. What about telecom networks powered entirely by renewable energy? You think that by 2050 it's going to be possible?
No way.
No?
No. Look at the COP conference.
But you're realistic. Thank you.
Look at the COP conferences.
I know.
And the little outcome, right? You have to be lucky if you in Barcelona and I in Singapore don't have the seawater to our knees, right? So.
Yeah. But I was thinking about you saying the death of the fixed line telephone, and the other day we are doing a reform at home, and I'm thinking, if we are out of light for any reason, there's a cut of power light, I need an analog phone. I need an analog line just to have a way of communication. And if that is dying, we are completely dependent on energy. So when if we're unable to produce renewable energy, this is doomed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what about 2050?
But that's the price you pay for. That's the price you pay for convenience, isn't it?
Indeed. So we are in 2050. Okay, then think about this: interplanetary internet connectivity.
Yeah. Okay. And who are we talking to on the moon
reality,
and Mars?
What do you think?
No, I guess you can talk to somebody on the moon because there will be some people up on the moon by then. But not sure what you talk about. Anyway, but yeah, it's not going to be it's not going to be a fiber cable.
I'm not sure it's going to be a fiber cable between the Earth and Mars. Well, we never know, but everything can happen. Okay, something more to the Earth. Voice call obsolete, replaced by thought communication. What do you think? It's going to be that a fact? How are we going to replace speaking on the phone?
No, unlikely.
Unlikely. Non-replacement. We're going to be still making voice call one way or another, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Unless you know more about some fundamental research that is happening in that space. But I think that would be really dangerous, to be honest.
Andrea,
or disappointing.
This is fabulous. I love it. Because you know what? Yesterday I was with another podcast that we have in Spanish about the future, and the lady, she was super optimistic. Everything. Yes. So I love our conversation because you are you're optimistic, but you're also in the reality on what it is. So I really appreciate that thought because it put us a little bit of in context. So I really want to get like a bonus question for you because now that I have you, I would like for you to tell us what would you say is going to be the most important focus for the telecom industry to ensure it remains resilient, relevant, and revolutionary. In this phase of very rapid technological and societal changes. What do we need to do as telecom industry people to be in the edge?
Yeah. Well, I think it has to start with themselves, right? And how they have to change the way they operate, the way they still act, and also a lot of the mindset. And it's not just by hiring somebody very, whatever, creative on top of the company. It has to be a real change in the organization. And that obviously takes time. And I think we have seen already quite a bit of progress over the last years. But I think it's essential to be able to attract the people who usually go to the challenges. And that will be very tough. But I think they have to do much more work to actually make them look attractive. I think telco was and still is a very exciting industry. And there's a lot of great people. And, people should not forget over the last 20 years, we built this global infrastructure network across political situations, across religious attitudes or whatever beliefs, right? And built in the international telco space, this infrastructure that carries so many things today. And people really don't know. I mean, my parents probably still struggle to understand what I did in the past, right? Because they think it just works, right? It's just there. You make a phone call and somebody picks up on the other side of the world. But there's obviously something in between. Then agility, they need to act quicker, right? It's just the processes, the silos, that's too complex. It just takes too long. They can never come out with anything. And we have witnessed that in the dealings we have with telcos in the last many years, really. And everything is a 2-3 year project, right? By that time, the world has moved on, right? So you can start from the beginning again.
But I love this approach, Andreas, because it's not only about hardware or software, it's actually about people.
It's about
the people that is in telecom.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, right? And as I said earlier, right, it is not about building something for 70 years anymore. It's about building something for the time, for now, for tomorrow, right? And that might not last more than 3-4 years. Then it's out of fashion, is out of whatever, right? So, and I think that thinking is not there yet. And you see even smaller challenges who focus on enterprise services. They are 20, 50 people companies. They win big contracts with government agencies and office because they can deliver in 3 months, 6 months, right? Not 2 years. And I think that's because contracts are short. Everything is much faster. And I think that responsiveness, that kind of agility and actions, actually, that is what is required, not long debates and endless meetings. And every time you have a conference call, there's 25 people from 15 departments. I'm not sure what for, but
exactly.
They might not be around in 3 years' time anymore. But it's just, I think that
we're going to be in a conference call with chatbots.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to take the decision.
Automated responses, but there's not much difference because sometimes you just get automated responses anyway, even from the people. So it's not my job, not my department. It's his fault.
Thank you so much for this incredible conversation. We are very grateful here with the staff, for your contribution for the Tech Foresight podcast. It has been amazing. Thank you so much, Andreas.
Thank you as well. It was great talking to you. Have a good day. Cheers, Diana.
Thank you. And so we wrap up another enriching episode of the Tech Foresight podcast. I am Diana Daniels, and it's been a privilege to explore the future with you. Please don't let this conversation end here. Follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and now X, and Facebook. Stay engaged with our community. Share your thoughts, join the dialogue, and let's continue to challenge the norms together. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Never miss an episode. Until next time, stay visionary and stay foresighted. See you soon.